Hello, my name is Freya Barber, and this is my presentation on grow lights as a disruptive technology. A quick history of the grow light. It's kind of hard to determine when the first grow light was used or invented because most light bulbs can work for a wide variety of simple household plants. Somebody at home could have figured this out and started doing it, but and we would never know. But what we can look at is the history of how grow lamps were used in research specifically. Researchers started to look into how effective artificial light would be as a light source for plant growth in the 1880s. Um, the carbon lamps became more popular as a light source for growing plants, specifically for research, until about the 1940s. These lamps were mostly inaccessible to the general public due to how often they had to be replaced. The harmful amount of ultraviolet they produced um, also made it not something you would want in the home. In the 1920s and 30s, researchers started experimenting with General Electric's Mazda lamps, if that's how you pronounce them. um, they're incandescent life and they're a lot safer for plant research than the carbon arc lamps. The Mazda lamps produced more red-based light with infrared radiation that could generate heat, so that stimulated a little more plant growth. Researchers would continue to experiment with various hazardous materials such as mercury until the University of Wisconsin tested the effectiveness of LEDs and plant growth in the 1990s. That being said, though, we still use mercury in some of our lighting. How do grow lamps work? Grow lights convert electricity into light particles that stimulate photosynthesis and encourage growth. The primary light sources needed for photosynthesis are wavelengths that are observable that we observe as color. Different plants are able to absorb different amounts of different wavelengths of lights. Most plants look green because they're reflecting green light instead of absorbing it. As a general rule, red lights are best for fruiting and flowering plants, while blue light is best for quick growth. Grow lights are designed to produce more or less of a particular color depending on the desired behavior for the plant. Um, there are various grow light options out there nowadays. They're a lot more common now. There are four main types. There are fluorescent lights. They can generate the full spectrum. They're not as energy efficient as LEDs, but they're still not too bad. And they have a highish heat output, but again, it's not too bad. I'm currently using an Aqueon Floramax fluorescent light on one of my fish tanks. Previously, I was using the default full spectrum fluorescent lamp that came with the hood, but I wanted to start growing some more demanding plants in my tank, and I got a small upgrade. It cost about $14 at my local fish store. This lamp gives my tank a nice purplish hue, and it makes my red cherry shrimp pop out more than they already did. This lamp puts out far more red and purple light than the full spectrum lights, resulting in a faster and fuller growth. Another option is incandescent lights. They're energy inefficient, they have a really high heat output, but they are cheaper than most other grow lights. I mostly use grow lights for fish tanks and terrariums, so the high heat output is a huge negative for me. Part of the reason I don't put my terrariums in the windows is because the sun would overheat them and cause them to burn. Incandescent lights have been known to burn plants. Uh, the most popular option by a pretty wide margin are LEDs. LEDs have a long lifespan, they're energy efficient, and they have a very low heat output. Most of the plants, most of the grow lights I use are LED. The long lifespan makes it a little easier to deal with the sometimes massive upfront cost. That being said, LED grow lights can vary pretty dramatically in price. I have a succulent terrarium, and I currently use a cheap $7 light to give it all the light it needs. This is this light only has blue and red diodes in order to cut cost and only provide the bare minimum of what is required. On my other fish tank, I have another full spectrum LED grow lamp. This one cost me about $30 and produces a more balanced white light. It's way overkill for a fish tank, so I have to have a lot of floating pants to make sure that I don't have a overabundance of algae growth. That specific lamp is supposed to be used for growing uh, terrestrial plants that require a lot more light. Before I decided to just keep my fish tank lid and get another fluorescent light, I was considering buying a higher quality LED light for my small tank, but the good quality LED lamp I was looking at cost me $135, so I went for the cheaper $14 fluorescent light, even though uh, it's not quite as high a quality. Last, we have HID lights. These are the best at replicating natural light. They're very expensive and are mostly only used for commercial growers. They can come in two different colors though. There are the high pressure sodium lights, which emit a red color, and a CMH light that produces a bluish color. So, how are grow lights disruptive? They've changed the way we farm. They allow us to grow things in highly controlled environments. Uh, we are able to produce a lot more in off seasons because we are able to keep things inside and have the lights to um, simulate the behavior of the season that the plants need to grow. Also, by keeping them in these contained environments, we are able to prevent bugs and weather changes and all that from damaging the products and produce. We can also keep animals out and stuff. So it results in a much higher success rate in how much of the crop actually gets to be sold. Grow lights have also given us the ability to produce food during very long trips, such as for space exploration. We've already grown peppers and various other produce in space, even though that comes with its own challenges. But due to how aggressive um, the light and radiation is up there, it is important to use grow lights to be able to keep a regular light cycle rhythm, because plants also need a active and rest cycle to produce properly. Grow lamps also have helped contribute to increasing access to food. As you can see in those little pictures, those are two little like in-home like herb gardens. So if you live somewhere where making like a garden outside isn't terribly efficient, you can get one of these little countertop gardens and grow any herbs you use on a regular basis, and save yourself a little bit of money at the store. Uh, Hopefully, we can find better and more efficient ways to do this so that we can produce more at home and have more elaborate at home gardens. So, the future impact, I talked about it a little bit already, but we have an increased agricultural production needs. We need to preserve water. And we need to find a way to introduce gardens to densely populated areas for multiple reasons. They're good for communities. They're also having plants in the home helps with air quality. Um, at the Biosphere 2, the University of Arizona has been collaborating with a company known as Freight Farms that is designing vertical shipping container farms that can be easily transported across the country. Their goal is to create an efficient and sustainable way to produce food for various communities. These containers are set up with a nutrients dense hydroponic system that have vertical walls for growing plants. Last year, the containers were able to produce 800 heads of lettuce a crop that went to local food banks. Because these crops were being grown in a controlled environment, they were able to reuse about 99% of the water used during this process with a built in humidifier that helps to recapture and recycle water. Pair that with the perfect climate control, and you get a crop of over 95% sellable product. This is all made possible by the artificial LED lighting. As you can see in these pictures, they're using mostly red and blue light to stimulate the growth of these crops, resulting in as little wasted energy as possible. So, the personal impact that grow lamps have had on my life, as I've mentioned before, I've got various fish tanks and terrariums. Uh, it's nice to be able to create a properly functioning ecosystem in a tank instead of having to use chemicals to try to maintain all of the different aspects. Plants are great for dealing with wastes and the nitrates and the nitrites, uh, and it results in a much happy, easier to maintain and healthier tank if you actually have live plants in them. If we didn't have grow lights, this wouldn't be possible. A lot of these plants are pretty uh, demanding on the light side of things. My tanks don't look the greatest right now because they're kind of in a in between phase where I'm doing a lot of maintenance and uh, changing things around, but I hope to have them up to speed soon. Um, Another thing is I live in an apartment, so having the opportunity to have a indoor garden is pretty major for me because I don't have any, land where I can, dig out a physical garden. Um, Finding ways to produce as much as possible in a very small amount of space is very important to me. Plus, I like having plants in the house. I think it, just bring a little bit of that nature inside kind of livens up the place, makes things feel a little less um, stale, I guess. Here are my references, and then here are the images that I used. Thank you for your time.